Maddy Glab here with Steelers reporter Missi Matthews. And Missy, a big Sunday night football matchup here for week 14. It's the Bills and the Steelers. But the Steelers, they've been playing quite a few games in a short amount of time. You guys have completely gotten the short end of the stick when it comes to schedule changes and things like that due to COVID-19. You guys are set to play your third game in 11 days here coming to Buffalo to play the Bills. How has the team dealt with all of these schedule shifts and changes? Certainly not easy, especially towards the end of the season here.
Yeah, I think the three postponements for the Ravens game, just everybody didn't know what was happening. And obviously you feel for the players, their families, anybody that was affected by contracting the virus or being a close contact. It's, a very scary and real thing. But going back to earlier in the season, week 4, when our bye week was completely just thrown upon us, everything was changed. Coach Tomlin said, we do not care. Like, this is 2020. They're playing football in the middle of a pandemic, so you have to be light on your feet and just kind of go with the flow. The postponement with the Ravens game wasn't great because it just kept changing and changing. The only good thing is that there were 3 straight days that Coach Tomlin gave the players no physical practices. They actually had Thanksgiving off, which, in football doesn't happen too often. You're either practicing or doing something. So that was maybe their quasi mini bye in terms of resting their bodies. Joe Hayden was a guy that if that game was played on Thanksgiving was never going to play that game. So it getting moved got him a chance to come back. So helps with injuries. I do think, the human element of it, like you and I, when you're changing constantly, you kind of don't know if you're coming or going. And I think, the guys feel that as well. So Coach Tomlin definitely does a good job of trying to keep them singularly focused at whatever is the next game, the next task. And as you said, Sunday Night Football in Buffalo.
Yeah, the Bills have gotten a little bit of a taste of the schedule changes too earlier in the season when their game against the Tennessee Titans got pushed. And that's a game that the Bills lost. And you could kind of tell that, unfortunately, the schedule change seemed to throw them off a little bit. So it's definitely something that is not easy for a whole team to adjust to. But like you said, you just have to kind of expect the unexpected in this 2020 year that we've all been dealing with. The Steelers suffered their first loss of the season. They were going for 12-0, lost to the Washington football team, and they've scored less than 20 points in the last 2 weeks. They scored 19 in a win against the Ravens and then 17 against the Washington football team. This team normally averages 27.8 points per game, so it's an explosive offense. But why do you think the Steelers offense has struggled here in the last 2 games?
Well, if you go back to the win over the Ravens, as you said, they still didn't score that many points as they were previously in the season. It didn't feel like a good win. They won, but there was also a pick 6 by Joe Hayden in that game to score some points. And then, of course, the Washington football team, when they came here to Heinz Field, the offense just doesn't have the fluidity. And the players have talked about it leading into this game, and even weeks prior. Coach Tomlin has talked about it, the run game, not necessarily having to have a 100-yard rusher every single game. But if you can't score 1 yard out, as Coach said, then you don't deserve to win. And that is exactly what happened in that game against Washington. Drops have been a problem the past 2 weeks by wide receivers and tight end Eric Ebron. So it just seems like they need to, maybe it was a silver lining and it was against an NFC team. They certainly did not deserve to win that game. Not that they didn't have chances, but yeah, it was just not a great day. Recently, we have had to limit the small amount of fans we've been allowed to have at home games, even more so. So it's just been a really weird past 2 weeks, and we'll see if they can respond. TJ Watt said, we have a bad taste in our mouth. Let's see what we can do moving forward.
Yeah, you touched on the rushing offense there. That's something that Buffalo has struggled with too this season, being under the 100 yards rushing every single game. They just pushed that over 100, and the past couple of games have seen some success and have started to have a little bit more balanced attack instead of just passing the ball heavily every game. So it's been good to see our running backs get going. And I know that's what you need, heading into the end of the season, into the playoffs, is a balanced attack from your rushers and your passers and receivers. But when the offense hasn't struggled for the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger has plenty of weapons at his disposal. I look at these two teams and I see a lot of similarities in just who Ben can throw the ball to and who Josh can throw the ball to. Receivers, tight ends, running backs. I was looking at the stats for the Steelers and they have 4 players who have over 500 rushing or receiving yards. In your eyes, when do you think this offense has had their most success and how has that played out?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen rookie wide receiver Chase Claypool really come into his own. His first touchdown was over 80 yards. And he really just has, it's crazy when you think about a rookie with a veteran quarterback being so well on the same page. No offseason, you were drafted virtually. Training camp was different than what we're used to. Of course, as a rookie, you don't know any better. This is your first experience. But Ben really does have a lot of trust in Chase Claypool, and we've seen that relationship come to fruition here. But yeah, Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, even James Washington is maybe he's that forgotten wide receiver that's part of the group that even going back to his rookie year was not on the same page with Ben. And they have a good rapport now. He had a 50-yard touchdown last week against the Washington football team. And Ebron's another guy. Vance McDonald, they were, Vance was on the COVID list and they were doing a lot of 2 tight end sets. And Vance even said, Ebron's the catcher, I'm the blocker, I help in the run game. So Vance is back, and I do think that kind of goes back to the problems for the Steelers. Marquise Pouncey has missed the past 2 games. James Conner's just returning to practice this week. Hopefully he'll play against you guys on Sunday. So you can't make excuses for it, but there are a lot of different things other than just the schedule changing and the uncertainty with that in terms of personnel that, the Steelers are not immune to, as well as every other team in the National Football League.
Most definitely. One thing that is for certain has remained true for the Steelers is their defense is out of this world again this season. They're allowing only 17.6 points a game, and they force turnovers like no other team in the NFL. They rank first with 16 interceptions, 44 sacks, 23 takeaways. We know this defense is strong pretty much year in, year out under Mike Tomlin, but what's different about this year's group?
Well, I think their closeness, and I know that's not like a sexy X and O thing about it. Obviously, they lost Devin Bush early in the season. Bud Dupree, the Steelers just played their first game without him. The tandem of him and TJ Watt just rushing the passer has been incredible. The Steelers last week against Washington tied the NFL record for 69 consecutive games with at least 1 sack. 31 during that streak was 4 more sacks in a game. So that's their MO, and they are not bashful about the fact that they like to create pressure, they like to blitz, but also the back end. They have veterans there in Joe Hayden and Steve Nelson, and Minkah Fitzpatrick, I would say, is the difference. They traded for him last year, and I think he kind of came into his own in year 2, better understanding of what everybody's doing, and also just helping other guys out, and the communication between the front end and the back end. And yeah, the turnovers just seem to be happening, although they weren't quite so lucky against Washington on Monday night.
This was an intense game between the Steelers and the Bills last season on Sunday Night Football. Another Sunday Night Football go of it this season. Plenty of premium matchups to look into. It will certainly be a great game when you look at the talent on both sides of the ball. But what matchup are you looking forward to most here in this game?
Not necessarily like wide receiver versus DB, but I think the Steelers defense against Josh Allen, he's kind of similar in Ben Roethlisberger in terms of, getting the ball out quick and being able to take his time if he needs to. So I am interested to see the matchup of what the Steelers defense does. Hopefully Steve Nelson comes back this week for them. Joe Hayden is in the concussion protocol, so he's kind of a wild card at this point. And then Robert Spillane, the inside linebacker who was filling in for Devin Bush, who got hurt, he also is dealing with a knee injury. So there's a lot of moving parts still happening, and I think they also, too, hold themselves to a pretty high level. And yes, the offense has its issues, but I think this defense really wants to come out and prove that, that wasn't a fluke what happened on Monday night.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what's going to happen between the matchup of Minkah Fitzpatrick, just to see what he does with the Bills wide receivers, specifically Stephon Diggs, seeing if he can help limit some of the big plays that the Bills tend to have every single game. Stephon leads the league right now with 90 receptions, has over 1,000 receiving yards. So I would think they would definitely lean on a wide receiver like him going up against such a talented defense that the Steelers have. But stars aside, who are some more of the under the radar players that Bills players and Bills fans should know about heading into the Sunday night football matchup?
Well, we know you guys have Tyler Matakevich. We called him Dirty Red here in Pittsburgh. One of his former special teams guys, Jordan Dangerfield, just continues to do great things on special teams. Dirty Red can tell you a lot about Danger. But on the Steelers defense, Vince Williams is probably the most underrated player in terms of he's not TJ Watt or Cam Hayward or Minkah Fitzpatrick, like you mentioned, but he was the guy that he has been with the Steelers defense since Ryan Shazier played. And then they drafted Devin, and then he came in, and he's still holding it down even with when Robert Spillane was healthy, and hopefully they get him back soon. Who knows what's going to happen on Sunday, but he's just kind of that veteran guy that has been on this defense and really knows everything and can help set guys. So I would say Vince is one of those names that probably doesn't, pop out. And I know you guys all know Terrell Edmonds because of his brother, and we did that whole story last year, with the three brothers playing together. So I'd go with Danger and Vince Williams.
Definitely, yeah. It'll be good to see the brothers get to see each other on the field. Certainly, a different season, like we already talked about with COVID. Bummer that probably all their friends and family can't be in the stands, as the Bills don't have any fans in the stands this season. So I'm sure a lot of people will be watching and cheering them both on from home. Thanks so much for the time. Appreciate it. Good to get to know a little bit more about the Steelers and preview this matchup as Sunday gets a little bit closer.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Wish I could see you on Sunday, but we'll have to text during the game or something.
I know, right? The Zoom is just going to have to do it.